Gentlemen, what's an absolute no-no for a girl to do on a first date? I was on a first date with a girl and everything was going great. We had a nice dinner and the conversation was great. After dinner, she asked if we could head to the bar where I had met her the week before. I said sure, no problem. We get to the bar, order a couple of drinks, and we're having a pretty good time. She points out that the guy she dated for a few months, let's call him Chad, was there. That's kind of awkward to bring up, but whatever. I kind of know Chad since he's a regular at the bar, and we have some mutual friends. I didn't know he and my date used to go out. Chad sees that I'm with her and soon leaves the bar. A few minutes later, my date starts checking her phone and texting someone. I go order another round of drinks. When I get back, my date asks if it would be okay if she went back to Chad's house. I told her she could do whatever she wanted to. I then said goodnight and went home alone. She texted me an hour later apologizing and saying that Chad wouldn't let her in. She then asked if she could come to my house. I politely declined and went to sleep. So I would say trying to hook up with your ex is a huge no-no for a girl to do on a first date. Chad pushed you out the way from that train. Ignore the guy and constantly text on the phone. Guy or girl, I cannot see how anyone thinks this is acceptable. I see it all the time with people on dates, or with friends, and it's so sad. Hell, my friends laugh about the fact that it puts me off. But they're still on their damn phones when we go out for a bite. Expecting him to keep the conversation going. Dialogue is a two-way road. I recently had a girl say to me on a date, "Why do you keep asking me questions?" Because, my dear, you are bringing nothing to the conversation and making me do all the legwork. That's about the time that you go and ask her an open-ended question about herself. Add that you want lots of details and then shut up. Does she say 3 sentences and stop? Keep the silence and let her go awkward. Maybe nod encouragingly and say, "Fascinating, tell me more," while actually looking interested. If she's stupid and can't even bounce the conversation back at you with a similar question or with a tangential topic for 10 minutes, leave. You're literally wasting your time and probably hers too. If you don't have common ground to talk for 10 minutes, you're not fit for a friendship, much less other stuff. Met her online and we chatted for a while. She told me about how her ex-husband screwed her best friend and they ran away together. It actually explained a lot. One night we agreed to meet up after I got off work. The entire day she called me baby, said she loved me, and texted nonstop. If I didn't answer her text right away, she would blow up my phone with calls. She knew where I was. Then during the last 2 hours of my shift, she would count down. Only 2 hours. An hour 45, hour 30, and so on until the last 20 minutes. Then it was every minute. Finally, when my shift was over, she texted me 3 or 4 times if I was on my way. I finally had enough and told her no, I wasn't, and it wasn't going to happen. Then she starts with the pictures of her crying. I had to ghost her for 2 days before she stopped. Poor girl didn't even make it to starting the first date. She needs a therapist, not a date. What about a date with a therapist? Don't meet me at your favorite local pub and then spend the entire date talking to your friends and the regulars and ignore me entirely. I didn't come there to talk to Pete with the wife beater at the corner of the bar. Don't screw someone else while I'm in the next room at the party you dragged me to. Okay, it's the first date and we're far from exclusive at this point, but what the heck? Come to think of it, don't take me to a party on the first date. Don't intentionally dress like a slob to make sure I like you for you. I'm not superficial and I want to know who you really are, but if you look like a wreck, that doesn't say a lot about you, and I don't like games. Don't tell me your grandfather is coming over, so I should go when it's really one of your booty calls. All of these happen. The first one is important. This has happened to me a couple times, and I will never allow it to happen again. Ladies, do not ask the man to meet you at your favorite hangout where you know a bunch of people and he knows no one. First dates are awkward enough. It's ridiculously unfair to put yourself in a really comfortable surrounding while making him that much more uncomfortable. I gotta say, that almost sounds like a perfect scenario to me. Lots of questions to ask when things get too quiet. So how do you know X, etc.? I know she's comfortable, so that makes me comfortable. And I only have to buy 1 round, and I've already ingratiated myself with all of her friends. Of course, if she's totally ignoring me, that's a whole other deal, but that's not the fault of the scenario. That's her fault for being rude and not introducing me to people. Expect the guy to pay. He will likely, anyways, but at least offer 50-50 for the win. Once, I took a girl out who offered to pay for her dinner. I paid anyway, but when we went out for ice cream later that night, she wanted to pay for mine. Be like this girl. It's really the appreciation that counts. Sounds like my last girlfriend. She is now my wife. Talk about your ex. Totally agree. Talking about the exes makes me nervous. especially if he's doing time on a battery charge and about to get out. Ask the guy how much they make in detail. My buddy went on a date with a girl who questioned him in detail about his health insurance benefits. That actually sounds scary. Always expecting the guy to initiate a conversation and carry it 100% of the time. I hate this. If I wanted to start and carry a conversation by myself, why wouldn't I just stay home and talk to myself? Like what? Tell a guy to meet you at a restaurant for a date, and then seat him when he gets there because you're the hostess on shift. Wait, what? Tell a guy to meet you— screw it, never mind. Asking me crap like, who are you? And why are you in my house? I'm a locksmith. She cut me off when the waiter came over and ordered my drink and meal in the name of gender equality. I mean, I guess she's equally as much an arsehole, but I just put the poor execution down to nerves and gave the benefit of the doubt. Then she later got very aggressive while we were discussing our cars. She mentioned that she was just about to spend PS 150 getting her head gasket replaced. I mentioned that PS 150 wasn't close enough to have it done properly and that it would likely fail again, and recommended my mechanic. She blew off the handle, calling me a misogynistic pig and that she didn't need it mansplained to her. It failed again 2 weeks later and was beyond the point of being worth fixing. Needless to say, did not want a second date. Such a huge difference between being helpful and so-called mansplaining. I hate that term. And far too many over-feministic people just don't get it. So many of our newfound culture rules are so annoying. What's the term for when you're a girl in the home improvement store looking for a specific kind of nail because you know from previous experience that it's the kind you need, but you can't find it, so you enlist the help of the old guy in the red vest? He asks you all about the project, and you tell him to, 'cause nice people, you know? And then he whisks you right out of the nail department, telling you all sorts of bad things about nails and walls and drywall and stuff that of course you don't know, and takes you to the industrial glue section because glue would work better, he says, and would be easier. So you take the bottle of glue, you go to the register, leave the bottle surreptitiously in the magazine rack, pay for the board, and go to the other home improvement store down the road. This time you remember to say your husband sent you to get nails. You ain't married. This just happened to me. Don't audibly gasp when you notice the waiter is missing an arm, then later tell me you have an incurable form of ringworm. Did you date a cat? Being late, maybe 10 minutes is okay, but 30 to 40 minutes late to our first date? No thanks. Checking your phone? The only real exception is to quickly Google something that came up in our conversation, not asking questions. To be fair, if I'm having a conversation so intense that we start looking to cite sources, then I'm going to marry her. Well, probably not marry for tax reasons, but we can still have a wedding. What tax reasons? I was under the impression that getting married was economically beneficial to the couple. Here's a quick and painless way to handle the bill. Be willing and able to split the bill. Ask if he wants to split it at the end. If he insists on paying, just let him. No sense dragging it out. I only say this because some guys still carry around that heavy stigma that they are meant to provide and pay for everything. And even if they don't, it's still the most awkward part of the date. Well, hopefully. Some girls also carry around that stigma. They should get together and leave me alone. A wise man once told me, by the end of the date, if you still don't know what kind of phone she has, she's a keeper. To be fair, if the conversation is interesting enough, I'll be Googling something at least once every couple of hours, so. Talk in a baby voice? It's worrying me how many women I meet that talk like a 5-year-old. They tend to be the, buy me everything, I care only about myself women, too. I suspect it's related. Order the $100 glass of wine. This is how you end up paying your own bill. True story time. The girl asked me out, which was nice for a change. We were both in our late teens and she said, let's just have fun. Sure, okay, nothing serious. I meet her at a bowling alley. Her friend and her 3 juvenile cousins. Okay. Proceed to bowl. Definitely weird that she has 4 people for support. Then, as per her suggestion, we all go to a billiards hall afterwards. I get a table. After about 10 minutes, she nopes out with her friend. I'm left with her 3 juvenile male cousins and the tab for the table. I literally was asked out to pay for the privilege of babysitting 3 kids I didn't know. She calls a few more times, and I never return her calls. Years later, I see her on Facebook, and it turns out she's a lesbian, and everything made perfect sense now. So, ladies, if you're in the closet, don't waste time asking out straight guys if you really just want someone to babysit your cousins as a sham alibi to keep your sexual identity from your parents. That's one manipulative girl. She should have offered to pay you to babysit. playing stupid to an excessive level. Being cute or asking more about what I'm into is lovely, but a girl I took to homecoming one year asked me to explain literally every part of football, including the ball. I sat there for a good 10 minutes breaking it down further and further, and she just kept shrugging with the same blank look of, huh? I don't get it. Turns out she was nervous, hadn't been on a lot of dates before, and took a friend's advice way too literally. Just relax. Been there. Had a girl on a date that pretended, or just is that dense, still not sure. She didn't know who Hitler was or have any idea that World War II had even occurred. The girl working the hostess table a few booths away kept face-palming and giving me looks of pity/quiet laughing as the history lesson got sadder and sadder. You should have asked the hostess out when you were leaving. Don't get overly intoxicated. The best first date I ever had went like this. Getting to the place we were going to have dinner, there was like a 30-minute wait for the table, so we walked around to the shops by the restaurant and talked. At dinner, bounced to a nearby bar for another drink, and realized we had a crap load in common. Got plastered, went to a strip club, and went back to my house. Dated for almost a year, broke up on New Year's Day. I had a first date very much like this with a similar outcome. We only lasted a few months though because she moved away, but if you can find a girl who's down for a strip club on the first date, she's a keeper. A flowchart of your sexual needs and expectations. Printed out and laminated. I would love such a flowchart. If she asks you to shove an entire jar of maraschino cherries into her anus, that's a huge red flag. Trust me. Wait, was she talking about the jar or each cherry individually? Because that makes a big difference. Good point. My mental model was that the cherries were to be inserted individually, but it is a whole other ballgame if the entire jar is to make the fantastic journey. Why that jar? Why not a jar of olives with pimentos? Or a Tabasco bottle, approximately the same diameter? Why not step it up to the business end of a ketchup bottle, which gets progressively thicker? Or just do what I call the Miracle Whip dip, where you jam a mayo jar or faux mayo jar up the dirt road. I once had a girl throw up on me on our first date. We're getting married in July. I sometimes worry that I don't have any standards. Congratulations, that's actually a sweet story. I picked the restaurant we went to and she got food poisoning there. Told me later that an acquaintance of hers had gotten food poisoning there a while before this, but I didn't realize it at the time. I just fed her some dessert squares I'd baked, and then she runs to the sewer grate to puke and doesn't quite get there, so I worry it was my fault. To be fair, I exaggerated a bit when I said it was on me, though she still phrases it that way when she talks about it. She was mostly stunned that I had decided to kiss her at the end of the date, despite knowing she'd just puked. And yeah, she's a nice girl, but when I decided to propose by replicating a fun early date, I picked our second date to recreate, not our first. Personal experience. Don't ignore texts inquiring about meeting up again, and then out of the blue send a message asking if they're free several weeks later. That just says you're not interested unless it's convenient for you. Joanne, that's right, I remember your name. I totally understand girls play with their hair, and if I had long-ass luscious hair, I'd probably play with it all the time. But when you're on a first date, I'd advise against playing with your hair to the point of wrapping it around your fork while you eat, and pulling out strands and making a pile of stringy hairs next to your napkin. Really takes you from that cute girl who worked at the movie theater who I asked out, totally stoked you said yes, to I wish you were bald. I have a thing with hair. I assure you I would have vomited on the table seeing that. Ask me a question, then change the subject before I can finish answering. Please do not take the last slice of pizza. You are the woman, and I respect that you deserve to be treated like a lady. But don't just assume that you're the one who is going to get the last slice of pizza. There are many things to take into consideration. Who drove to the pizza place? Who had the first slice of pizza? The saying goes, ladies first, not ladies last. Assuming I took you on a date to a pizza place, I probably insisted on picking you up. Therefore, I have already spent money on gas and planned ahead, thus spending time and energy to do so. Then I probably let you pick your seat and pulled out the chair for you. Finally, I assume that I let you have the first slice of pizza because you're worth it, and I'm interested in you. That last slice of pizza, however, may still be yours, but don't assume so. You can't have your cake and eat it too, or in this case, pie. Thanks for listening. Are you dating the pizza or the girl? Which makes you happier? Ask me why I still have a debit card. What? Why wouldn't you? Because it's so much more fun for her to run up the debt on your credit card. I've been in a lot of long and short-term relationships, and if I could give my younger self any advice, it'd be this: be yourself and be honest about who you are. If the girl you're on a date with doesn't like you for who you are, it's not going to be fun. Don't waste your time with someone who wants you to change, and don't waste her time if you're not hitting all the boxes on her perfect man checklist. To answer the question, if you're honest about who you are and she isn't stoked about that, it's not a good fit. Move on. I went on a date with a girl who I met online. During this time, we were both in college. She had just finished her undergrad, and I was still working on my non-traditional undergrad, work and school. She was very proud of going to a big-name school for pre-med, like overwhelmingly proud. I had recently learned my lesson about meeting someone based solely on their dating profile, so I did my requisite 5 minutes of online research. Turns out, she ran a huge blog about going to med school in Mexico, and how it was her only option because of her poor grades in undergrad. Her blog reassured the reader that there was no shame in it at all, because really, American med schools have too high of standards and blah blah blah. I didn't think much of it, to each their own. She seemed cool enough. Flash forward to our date after a half dozen messages. I pick her up from her parents' house and drive her to a nearby bar. Strike one, needing transport on a first date. We chat for a little bit, and then she starts grilling me on my plans for the future. Which is okay, I guess, but then she had the gall to listen to my plans, nod her head, and act like she was my guidance counselor and tell me that it was a pretty good path for me, or suggest a different school, masters, etc. She also made a point of talking about how hard her undergrad was, and what an achievement it was for her to graduate from X school. This continued for over an hour and got worse and worse, as she kept commenting on my life and giving me suggestions. She was literally acting like she was judging me from a throne. Strike two. She got super defensive and nasty when I asked her where she was going to med school and refused to answer. All the while, she was chowing down. I'm not one to hold someone's size against them, but this girl ate 40+ wings and a platter of deep-fried cheese solo, all while getting sloppily wasted, the entire time telling me over and over how she doesn't normally drink at all. Strike 3 and 4. We were at a bar for about 90 minutes total. To her credit, she offered to split the bill, and we did, and I made a point of ducking out early. She insisted on walking home, and while I was trying to talk her into letting me drive her home or calling a cab or a friend, it was a 3-mile drive at around 11 p.m. She snuck out the side door and ran away. I was understandably concerned, so I called and left a voicemail asking if she got home okay, and sent a text to the same effect. Suffice to say, I had no attraction to judgmental garbage disposal who looked nothing like her profile picture, but still, fearing she got hit by a car or something, I texted her the next day letting her know I wanted to make sure she got home okay because she was pretty wasted. She waits 24 hours from that point and sends me the nastiest text ever, telling me essentially that I needed to take the hint and leave her alone because she obviously wasn't interested. So like, strike 5? Anyways, basically being this girl and doing any of the things she did is a huge no-no. Sounds like she's overcompensating for not being able to get into the med school of her choice. I ended up having my first and only date with a girl who was vegan not too long ago. Not that being vegan is a problem, but it's helpful for the story. To start, the conversation was miserable, and interacting with her was totally awkward. Can't stand going out to dinner with someone who expects me to carry the conversation, but that wasn't even the worst part. What really sealed the deal was when the waitress brought out our drinks. Both were water with lemon. She asked if I ever eat my lemon, and while I thought it was a little strange, I said that I didn't and just chalked it up as a vegan habit. She then proceeds to eat the lemon from her water, rind and all. I was a little disturbed by this, but again, this itself wouldn't have been a nail in the coffin. However, things were about to get so much worse. She then asked if I was going to eat mine, and I once again declined. She reaches over, grabs my straw, and tries to fish the lemon out of my water. I kept my best poker face, but soon lost it when she couldn't get the lemon out of my straw and instead stuck her hand in my drink to grab the lemon and eat it. Needless to say, I was very dehydrated for the rest of my meal while she awkwardly stared at me eating a burger with painfully little conversation. Ladies, if we've been together for several months and you're trying to mess with me, that's one thing. On your first date though, don't touch anything I'm about to ingest. It's disgusting. This is like a Seinfeld bit. Taking pictures of the food or cocktail is a huge turnoff for me. It signals vain and vapid. Going from a woman's perspective, they may see this as a compliment. If you chose the restaurant and they're excited about the food, taking a photo is a way to show that. It's part of the whole enjoying the thing for me. Some people just do it for attention though, so I can't speak for everyone. Basically this: I love food, and I get really excited about good tasty food and its presentation when it comes to me. I'm definitely one of those people who tweets pictures of her food, but it's just because I'm thrilled about having it. I don't have a lot of followers, I'm not a foodie or anything, and it makes up very little of my online presence, but I did used to be broke though, and survived half a year on eggs and rice, so maybe that's part of it. Nice food makes me happy.